Hello, everybody, and welcome to Day 3 of the Content Summit. Today is the Television Summit. We're going to focus on the business and the industry around television. This event is being co-sponsored by the Academy of Television Arts and Sciences, and I know we'll have different folks drifting in and out today, both attendees and speakers who are members of the Academy. The Academy of Television Arts and Sciences is made up of a number of peer groups that create television. I am actually governor of the Interactive Media Peer Group. There are many different peer groups, and if you're interested in membership, if you're not an Academy member, in fact, how many folks here are Academy members? Oh, great. All right. Well, I don't have to sell you guys. But if any of you are not Academy members and you want to find out about membership, please come and see me. But we built the day today to be a little bit more future focused on what's happening in the digital side, in the recruitment side, in the storytelling side of the future of television. And I think it's going to be a really rich and exciting day. Again, my name is Lori Schwartz, at World of Schwartz. Please feel free to tweet DH2012, and also we have a Content Summit Twitter as well, I think. No? Or are you using DH2012? So keep the conversation going. And without further ado, I'm going to introduce your first moderator today for our recruitment panel. And you can't get any better than Linda Nicolai, ladies and gentlemen, who's the president of the Executive Alliance Group Recruiting. And Linda has been a professional executive recruiting resource for many years. She's really someone that everyone goes to when they have needs in our industry, in the digital media content space. She has a deep expertise in digital media, mobile entertainment, and she's always looking at and tracking trends and who's doing what, and is just a fabulous resource in the space. I think you're going to learn a lot from her, and she has fabulous hair, which, ladies and gentlemen, Linda Nicolai.
What to be happier about, the good hair day or Lori? All right, we have a great panel today. Thanks so much. I know people are going to continue to be trickling in because traffic was merciless today. So we'll start out with some of the lighter topics, and then as people come in, they can join in for questions a little bit later. The purpose of pulling this panel together was the recognition several years ago that the transformation to all things D was permanent, was unrelenting, and an entire new skill set of jobs and requirements were underway. And new tech companies were popping up left and right, mobile apps, everything coming online very quickly, yet no one was addressing how the workforce is supposed to adapt to this. And I would get calls and calls and calls from people talking about, oh, I'm a traditional media dinosaur. How do I evolve? What do I do? What's my job of the future? What is this social media stuff? Do I really have to have a LinkedIn and a Facebook account? And then you would go and you would talk with the HR folks on the other side, lamenting about how difficult it is to find the right talent and spending more time counseling people than actually being able to derive from the resume what their skill sets are. So it's a very topical panel, very timely, and I haven't seen one done at any other conference. So I think we've got a great set of discussion to deal with today. Have a really excellent, stellar group of people. The printouts are there in front of you, so we don't have to go through introductions. But I always try, this is about the 5th time we've done the careers panel in 2.5 years, and amazingly, every 6 months something new comes up and something changes. And so I like to change out the panel and bring in folks that are sitting in organizations running HR and having to deal with these new tools, new technologies. I like to bring in folks external, like Anne-Marie and myself, that are external recruiters, and then I like to bring people from companies that support the industry, as we have here with Tweet My Jobs. So we're going to cover 3 areas today, basically, and then we're going to open it up for pretty heavy Q&A, because I know you folks probably have a lot of questions. Initially, we're going to talk about the future, where the jobs are, where the growth is, jobs that didn't exist 1, 3, 5 years ago, the blending of those jobs, and from this panel's point of view, they have to do workforce planning. They have to look out 1, 5 years ahead and see what new skills they're going to need and how they're going to be able to build that up and create that talent acquisition. The second area will be the tools that they use, the internal machinations of human resources. You'll be amazed at, it's very methodical, it's very calculated, it's very technical, scientific. These are very reasoned, hardworking people. They are not just taking your resume and throwing it into a black hole. So this puts a face with human resources and makes you understand that they really work very, very hard to find the best talent. And then we're going to talk about the third area, which is you, your brand, how you are managing your career, all the things that you need to be doing that are very different from, drop the resume in the mail, send it along, wait for the phone to ring. We're in a very, very, very different age right now, and it's critical that you manage your career for your future growth, but also if you're in a situation like me that has a child in college, helping them understand how to manage their future going forward, their career going forward, and then Q&A. So that said, I want to go ahead and ask about the perspective that the three gentlemen have that are working internally. Well, Todd will be here soon. He's obviously caught in traffic. But to talk a little bit about your overview of workforce skill sets that you've seen changed in the last couple of years and what you see going forward, and why, I'll throw it out to you, Jeff or Andy, whoever wants to start first, just to give your overview of what do you see in terms of job growth for the next 1-5 years. Or Andy.
All right. Well, I think that the job growth, what we're seeing mostly is around specific areas or industries. I think that the technology world, both in terms of that field as well as the companies themselves, are growing. I work for a social media company, so what we see as our competition tends to be different than other companies. I think that with the economy turning to some degree, there's a lot more of angel investors and venture capitalists starting to put money back in. You're seeing smaller organizations starting to ramp up. So it's kind of shifting the landscape. And the landscape is always shifting. But it's shifting from people who were concerned about stability of jobs and wanting to stay in companies to now saying, I want to be more adventurous. So it's where are we going to see the competition? But it is growing for us. We've gone from over the last 7 years, 6 people to 700 and spread from just in the Santa Monica area to 4 different countries now. So for us, it's growing rapidly. We're seeing our competitors do a lot of the same thing. So it's presenting some interesting challenges for us.
Any particular, what are the buckets? If you have 4 or 5 buckets, obviously you have engineering and software, but sales, marketing, biz dev.
I would. Technology is far and away our biggest right now, our biggest challenge. We're finding a lot of product management that is a challenge. It's because I think that formal experience in that is a little bit more challenging. A lot of it tends to be more just on-the-job training. Content, we produce a great deal of content for the web, and finding people with formal education in traditional journalism and understanding that piece is important to us as well.
Yay, hybrids. Andy, what's your take?
Well, if you look at the 4 divisions that make up Time Warner, they're all basic traditional content and publishing. Between Turner, HBO, Time Inc., and Warner Brothers, we would have been considered, in Linda's earlier comment, one of the traditional media dinosaurs. But when you look across all of the divisions, the area that has the most growth for us is games. I mean, a lot of the other businesses are mature. It's incremental growth. We're still trying to come out with the best shows and the best movies and the best publishing. But the games business over the last 5 years for us has represented the most need. And in terms of the skill sets, as Jeff, who comes out of games, can tell you, that's those skills are at a premium. But the growth that particular division has experienced has been exponential compared to any of the other divisions within Time Warner. So,
all games, PC, free to play, console.
Yeah, we've experimented, as you know, with Time Warner in some ways almost like Microsoft. They like to sit back and watch what's going on. If you think, and then come back at it with with maybe on the second pass, right? I mean, and then try to do it better and faster and smarter. If you look at reality television, I mean, we watched End Them All, Fremantle, and everybody just whizzed by. 5 years ago, we're still selling Friends in the UK. And the programming landscape was completely and totally changing. We have now gotten, I think, quite a bit of momentum behind that kind of programming after watching what the market had done over the last 5 years and finding the best talent from that. I think that that's just an MO that we followed that seems to be working for us now, and the same for games. I mean, if you look at what we were trying to do with games 5 years ago, right, or even 7 or 8 years ago, and I think we finally got the right formula in place for the growth that we needed.
Excellent, excellent. Stuart, I don't know if you had an opinion on that.
I mean, not really. Tweet My Jobs. What we're doing is we're distributing companies' jobs. We're doing a number of things. We're helping them distribute their jobs to where job seekers are. We're helping companies brand themselves, and we're helping companies target the right seekers. And actually, in social recruiting, branding is probably becoming the most important of those three things. And branding's becoming important because, just to back up what you guys have said, competition for great talent out there is really tough. And so you as an organization, as a company, need to explain to that talent where they are every day, which is on social media, why you're a great place to work and why their future, your company is the place to put their future. So, we're seeing, really across the board, there are 2.5 to 3 million jobs available online today that you can go to Simply Hired or Indeed or one of the aggregators and see them pretty easily. Engineering talent, very difficult to come by right now. That's because technology really is a booming industry. The kind of product dev stuff, all that type of things that you're saying, gaming, it's all in that new media, new booming kind of industry. So, but we see that, but we also see, at the other end of the scale, temporary jobs and hourly jobs really, really difficult to fill. So like customers of ours like Starbucks or Wendy's or Sears or that type of organization is looking for a lot of hourly employees, and there's tons and tons of jobs out there for those people as well. Obviously less relevant probably to this audience, but you're seeing it at that level as well as at the more sophisticated technology engineering level.
Interesting. How about you, Emery? Any thoughts?
A couple things on a macro level. Pretty much every job that we're filling across the board, even in areas that aren't technical, everybody needs to have a certain amount of technical. And that's been kind of a tough blow for a lot of people. It reminds me of being in college and everybody hated algebra, but you still had to do it. So even on the marketing side of the house or product or even the content, people need to understand enough about HTML and the layout of a web page or an iPad to know how to be effective in their jobs now. We're also seeing a very strong macro trend that the roles that are more directly in line with generating revenues or, and or profits, but more likely revenues, those are the roles that are really hot and have kind of evolved. So engineering is hot because you bring in coders, you make a product, you can sell it. In marketing, a lot of those jobs have softened. There are fewer of them. They're very competitive. The salaries have gone down a little bit. Unless they're really, really focused on analytics, customer acquisition, retention, conversion, very, very numerical as a job. And I've got marketing candidates that love branding and PR and hate the numerical side of things. And they're really struggling because they don't want to learn. In product, also, again, very technical. Much more so than ever. And, if they're not technical, then they're very focused on user experience and the creative side of things, dealing with information architecture, wireframing, and, a lot of the relatively new trends in product. But, those are the people that are getting hired, whereas the others are just kind of, staying at the same level, and struggling a bit.
Yeah. Do you spend time working with the candidates that might come from a traditional, say, consumer products background, marketing, or have marketed, entertainment to consumers, but aren't really prepared for the social digital realm?
I definitely get those kind of resumes. I help them where I can. I think that, this economy right now is very much a case of the haves and the have-nots. Mm-hmm. And so there's a lot of people that didn't jump into mobile fast enough, and they're trying to figure out how to get into that bandwagon, and they can't figure that out. Traditional, or maybe just a little bit of web, especially in the agencies, the TV commercials and print and all of that has been so huge, and it's still big from a revenue standpoint compared to the web and mobile. But they didn't anticipate the future fast enough, and now those jobs are just much more limited than they used to be. So usually I try to encourage those people. Try to, first of all, be your own best recruiter and go build your relationships and network with people and try to find those people that'll crack the door open for you a little bit. And even if you've got some stuff that's on the side, every little bit is a step in the right direction. But you can't just go from completely traditional and keep applying to, completely digital jobs and expect that you're going to get anybody to pay you attention because your competition is just, already qualified.
Got it. Andy, looking at it from obviously Time Warner being, 30,000 employees, I know that there's a huge internal system that tries to make internal jobs available to the employees so that they can apply internally first. Has Time Warner created a system that retrains or helps people transition into the digital side so that they have these opportunities, so you don't have to continually go out and get that new talent?
Yeah, that's a really good question. It's something we also we're committed to, and I think struggle a little bit, like any company of our size and weight and what we do. Mm-hmm. There's a consistent and constant emphasis on those skills. A lot of it does, though, fall on the shoulders of the employee. It's made available, the training and the education, but on one level, it's also generational. On another level, it's also just how you're wired, and no pun intended, or unwired, and how you how you look at the world. There is a bifurcation in terms of, let's say a typical head of marketing at a network. That person may not have digital responsibilities under them, and they will hire someone who specifically understands how to market in that world to work for them. And that's been probably something that's going to collapse into the same kind of job eventually, right? I mean,
exactly.
From our position, we're seeing this collision in all aspects. I mean, even just content creation has to be agnostic, right? I mean, we're used to thinking in terms of television or particular kinds of screens or distribution, but we're also dealing with a world that's very traditional in its output in terms of the way, ad sales is run and the way that content is distributed, as opposed to the way that content now needs to be created and the skills to do that, including digital. Exactly. So we're in that, we're kind of in that funky space where it's starting to come together. Right. It might take a little while, but we do make available those. We're constantly having seminars, constantly having the people who do have that knowledge try to spread that knowledge and try to move people around within the company to give them the opportunity to take jobs that are stretching muscles that they hadn't had an opportunity before.
Good. So. I think a lot of companies are beginning to address that. And just a point in terms of your blending. A few years ago, you would start to see the trends where there would be one sort of token position within a division. It was a VP of mobile or a director of communities, they were calling it a couple of years ago. Well, now those roles have been blended into the digital side or into the marketing side. In a few years, you won't hear the word social media anymore. It's implied, it's understood, the same as today when you say commerce, it's e-commerce or m-commerce. It's now part of the lexicon and the job spec. Jeff, also, you guys are a pure play. You though mentioned that you do look for hybrids. You do try to bring some folks in from the traditional side of publishing and editing, or editorializing, I guess, is choosing content for demand. And then you're bringing in just tech guys that are coming from other tech companies and not from any sort of traditional media background. How do you train these folks, and how do you, if you do, prepare them for cross-training or other opportunities within the company?
We throw them in the deep end of the pool.
Sink or swim.
I can't say that we do enough of that, but I do think that people have, the way that the organization operates is a lot of our leaders are really focused on figuring out ways to partner between different folks within the workforce. I don't want to call it a full-on mentorship program because it's not necessarily structured that way. But there is a lot of alliances and a lot of creating that cultural immersion into the organization. And I think that we look at certain skill sets that we want to leverage in those cases. Anne-Marie mentioned it when she was talking about the analytics piece. I think that that's a key element for us. So oftentimes we may look for someone who has traditional publishing background. Maybe they're not with HuffPo or with City Search or something like that, but they do have background from more of the traditional media formats, and we will bring them over, but we do look for other skill sets that we can leverage. So if we see those, then those are things that will be like, okay, we can train this skill. We want somebody who's smart, has the fundamentals in place, has the cultural fit. Let's figure out how we can basically indoctrinate them into the organization such that they'll actually be able to be successful in these roles. One of the challenges we face is being a company. We went public almost 2 years ago. We've been around for about 7 years. We've grown very fast in that period of time, but we are but an ant on the mountain that is organizations like Time Warner. That said, though, it means that we need to move quickly, and we do, and that's how we create those partnerships. We also, in many cases, to your point of those opportunities, being a smaller organization, it's much more difficult to create those career paths for people because you don't have a large place where people can say, all right, I want to move diagonally over into this opportunity. So we have a lot of people that move around the organization throughout their career. And it's just a general belief is you bring in smart, competent people that fit well with the organization, that can move quickly and adapt, and we'll find those right opportunities to leverage their abilities.
Interesting. Kind of like the Microsoft way, just bring in smart people.
Yeah.
Get them to work. Any other comments on that? I want to... yay. Ladies and gentlemen, direct from Seattle, Todd Davis, and LA's best traffic.
Hey, Todd.
I'll let Todd get settled here. Good. Don't you just miss the 405? We did it just for you.
We're just warming up.
Oh, I've seen Seattle traffic.
Oh, yeah. Todd Davis has been on this panel, 3 or 4 times, quite articulate and very, very...
Thanks for pointing out that I've been on it before, but I'm late. That's awesome.
That's all right. Got to make a grand entrance, right? And most recently joined Amazon as their head of recruitment and fulfillment.
The camera. Do we need to fix his camera?
Can we see you, Todd? It's coming. Our tech guy will come.
Should I just move it myself? Take the
Yeah,
initiative?
you see if it pops up there somewhere. We'll get you online. Todd, if you are so collected and want to ask, we were talking a little bit about, your overview of the job market, 1 to 5 years from now. Obviously, Amazon is the giant commerce gorilla in the room. Snuggling up closely to Hollywood lately, I've been seeing, and I suppose that might be a strategic hire in terms of you joining them. But
I think so. The question is around the landscape.
Yeah, what do you see where the job growth is? Anything new coming up where you're like, ooh, we don't have that skill set in spades. I better start setting people aside?
It's a really good question. I think, if I could predict the future, I wouldn't be doing this. But I think definitely the idea around people's ability to leverage technology in new ways. For example, in my role, I'm heading up what's called North American Fulfillment. And it's, in a nutshell, that's what allows, whenever you buy something on Amazon.com, it's what allows it to get from the warehouse, the fulfillment center, to you. Actually arrive at your door. And that includes now some of the digital technologies and applications that we have. Those technologies and all those ideas didn't exist 3 years ago, 2 years ago. They were maybe ideas, concepts, and I mean, I'll be honest, there were literally design conversations around, wouldn't it be cool, like on Star Trek, if we could just teleport things to people? So those are the kind of ideas and conversations that people start asking, why not? Why can't we do certain things? So the skill sets around digital technology, being able to apply them in innovative ways, in ways that people maybe haven't thought of before, is going to be key. I think that'll be something that everyone will be looking for, and especially a company like mine, where being able to say, okay, well, this is a fulfillment operation. How hard is it to run a warehouse, or to drive a truck, or do that? Well, technology can be incredibly innovative. Just thinking of it now, imagine a social media app where an Amazon delivery could contact you in real time and let you know that it's actually arriving at your door, so you can get home and run to your doorstep and get it. That's the kind of technology application through a social media app that you may see soon from companies like Amazon and from other groups.
Oh, well, I expect to get my 3D washer any day, and that will obviously lower your shipping costs, and there we are. That's a very nice segue into section 2 here about how they do what they do, how we do what we do as recruiters, how HR functions and works. With the advent of social media recruiting and all the new tools that have come out, I would say that the hiring and recruiting industry has probably gone through one of the most massive transformations in its existence, probably more so than, I certainly know in terms of its effect on the professional services side of the business, but also in terms of efficiencies, both within companies and all the new systems that they're using, and externally that social media is allowing basically your candidates to sit right out there in your front door, and you don't have to do half the work. So a lot of the times the applicant tracking systems are being replaced because LinkedIn is becoming more and more robust. There are applications out there like Tweet My Jobs that can put jobs out on the market the minute that the rec is approved, and we have what we call real-time hiring. The response rate to people applying when they get a tweet spikes dramatically, and then it generally drops off after a day or two, just like anything with Twitter. But the fact of the matter is the majority of people that are hired because of a tweet are responding within the first hour. And I bet you Stuart has some more stats on that. So what I want to ask a little bit about is, from an internal point of view, how does your HR function? What do you do with your company brand in terms of attracting people, and is there anything you're trending toward? For instance, companies, if you want a really good case study, check out Autodesk. They run an incredible entire 360 recruiting system, from a optimized mobile website to a gamification website to employee referrals to just their corporate website that gives information. But it's a fantastic ecosystem that they manage that draws in people, and they're even looking at potentially creating very close alliances with universities and or creating their own university and subsidizing people's education. There's a lot of things that are changing relative to it, A, because of the huge demand for talent in STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math. Those 4 key areas are in huge demand, and Silicon Valley is trying to address that, and companies like Autodesk are also trying to address it, going one step further and thinking, why not just pay for their education, commit them to a 2 to 3 to 4 year run here at the company, and then we'll take it from there. So, Jeff, if you could talk a little bit about how you recruit. I mean, you had to ramp up very quickly. Southern California has been given a hard time about being kind of not a huge repository for tech talent, and I would definitely take issue with that, as I'm sure Emery would. But talk a little bit about the whole HR talent acquisition strategy that Demand Media uses.
First of all, I would agree with your statement that you would take challenge with the idea that there's not a great deal of tech talent down here. I think that down here it's actually grown dramatically. I think that there's a big push to try and establish the presence. I think that the reason that there's so much talk about that is because of the
just Silicon Smackdown. Come on,
it's just a huge presence of the Silicon Valley.
Yeah.
So having that competition out there just makes it comparatively more challenging down here. That said, it's interesting when you use the term the ecosystem of it all, the job search ecosystem, and you had made a comment about with all this LinkedIn and everything, it's making the process easier. I think that every one of my recruiters would argue with that, saying it's much more labor intensive because it's no longer establishing a profile. It's no longer about just a resume. I mean, the resume, it's not that the resume is dead, it's that the resume still remains the center of the wheel around which everything else falls, but there is so much more going on now. So you do have things like LinkedIn and other mediums through which you're creating your presence. Is it through communities? Is it forums? Is it having your own blog? Is it tweeting things? So there's a whole collection of ways in which you're building your presence. We talk about a brand, but I think even brand is too limiting a concept for us. So what our recruiters have to do is yes, they use LinkedIn. LinkedIn is probably one of the most widely spread used tools out there right now for recruiters. That said, I think that our ATS, the one that we actually switched over to about 2 years ago, is specifically focused on having a social media connection. So there is a lot more of an ability for us to tweet, to post on forums, to connect with our executives who are regularly writing blogs. We have senior leaders in the organization that are writing blogs on a regular basis, that are tweeting things, so we can actually connect to those and get them out there. So it means that it's a lot more labor intensive in terms of putting it out there, but also in terms of pulling it in. The whole sourcing process now is much more involved. It's not that you're calling around to, in the old days, they would call around to a bunch of companies, work through the Rolodex. Now it's going out to those forums, see who's establishing a presence on the forums, see what they're talking about. Are those people that are interesting, people that are talking about things that are of particular interest to you and you want to bring in? So it can be very, very labor intensive.
Just a quick interruption. When you're interviewing particularly your tech team, do you run them through scenarios? Do you ask them to show some code? Do you have Facebook gives you about 3 questions before you can even apply. I'm just wondering what tactics you might use.
In advance or when they're on site?
Either way, how do you pre-screen?
We wait till we get them in the room. Okay. We lock the door and then we start throwing things at them and see how they respond. We actually have a lot of different things that we do, and it runs the gamut. To Anne-Marie's point earlier around things like analytics, it almost doesn't matter the position. We run people through everything from coding exercises to Excel tests, and it's not as back in the day. In a former life, I was with Capital One, and they built some of the most robust selection programs that I've ever been part of. These are not designed in the same way. They aren't validated selection tools that have in-depth studies to help back up kind of the predictive abilities of them all. But they are things that are off-the-shelf tools or ones that have been designed internally by our engineers to say, these are the skill sets we care about. So we do have a collection of things that we put them through. That's more around the analytics, though, than the social media type of elements. We don't really do too much of that online in advance.
Okay, fair enough. Andy, you have some thoughts?
Well, having always been in executive search, it's interesting. I got to admit that when LinkedIn first,
You're not going to talk about, merchandising for Pink Floyd in your early days? Dude.
Somebody read my bio. Yeah.
It's called LinkedIn, yeah. All right, go ahead.
Does anybody remember the Beastie Boys? So, yeah. So when I first heard about LinkedIn, I got to admit I was skeptical. Like, this is never going to work for executive search. And then Korn Ferry came out with Future Step, and that was sort of I guess we could call it a semi-failure, although now they're probably laughing. But I have not had. It's interesting to build a picture of a candidate now based on everything that's out there. I mean, this is about perpetual persistence, right? That's right. And how do you manage? It's almost like a full-time job to manage your persistence in the market. Like what? How many blogs can I possibly run? How many accomplishments can I possibly put out there? And as Jeff was saying, the resume to me still is like the anchor and the center of the wheel. But in terms of actual recruiting, yes, we've made like Time Warner has teams of people. And I know Todd can confirm this because he used to be a brother in arms over at Warner Brothers, who was responsible for actually a lot of the work that we've done in social media from the Warner side. But every division has people working very hard to make sure that both our opportunities are out there and that we're taking advantage of the technologies to bring people into the company. But I must clarify that I'm a little bit of the odd man out because the group that I'm in was built specifically for executive search, which is your basic vice president and above, right? So when LinkedIn first came out, I was like, how am I going to find the chief operating officer of, they're not going to be on LinkedIn. Well, I was proven wrong. I mean, there's almost everybody has a LinkedIn profile. They may not have everything filled out and what you want to hear or what you want to see, or they just have their name and their title, but at least hey, that person exists and I'm going to find them. Their
name, their title, and 2,000 connections.
Yeah, and you have
one
people.
Friend.
The gentleman who was running Reuters, I forgot his name now, had his own blog. I mean, everybody, it's definitely pervasive. So, and in terms of ATSs, I've always had a skeptical attitude in terms of I've always wanted to be able to figure out how to turn an ATS into something more powerful, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, it's a clunky, public-facing technology that is difficult to recruit out of if it's not connected to other systems or other ways of managing information, right?
For many years was proprietary within companies, and then you had the third-party software companies come in. ATS, applicant tracking system. When you apply online, it goes into that, what you think is a black hole. But
but it's not a black hole.
It's not.
There is so much. I can't even imagine how much data we have in our ATS. I mean, and now, so what really the trick is, and I don't know, companies like Monster and like you were saying, third parties have built technologies to pull that stuff out. And why Brass Ring has not done that themselves, or they're attempting.
Jeff, what do you use, Taleo?
Actually, we use JobVite.
Okay.
Yeah, and one of the things that is nice about applicant tracking systems, and the ones that tend to be more web-based and have more of that social media element, is also the reporting pieces. I remember I had a CTO one time, said the job doesn't get done with updates. So spending all your time doing updates is not going to get the job done. How do we get our recruiters to focus on recruiting, but then make sure that we're satisfying the managers in terms of their information? And that's where we like a lot of the value out of different applicant tracking systems, is the ability to provide that update to satiate that desire by the managers. So I think, to your point around the data, I mean, there's so much rich data in there. The value point is, because there are so many touch points in social media, if you have the ability to search through it, the ability to be able to answer questions around it, it's I hear about somebody through somebody who's over at this company. I can go, I hear about a blog, I go read the blog, I'm interested, I'm saying, hey, this is an interesting person, do you know anybody over at that company, or do you know that person? And there's a lot more ability to manage the information effectively.
Cool. Stuart, why don't you talk a little bit about tweetmyjobs.com? You know, it's more than just a micro distribution channel for jobs. It also generates a lot of big data too. So kind of give the audience an overview.
Yeah, sure. You know, when we're talking about Tweet My Jobs, though, we have to think about there's two sides to this. There's two sides to this coin, right? There's the company that's trying to recruit, and there's the job seeker. And you have to think about them slightly differently because they need and want different things. And Tweet My Jobs tries to provide both parties with what they want. So on the employer side, what we're trying to do is at the push of a button, distribute their jobs directly from their ATS, their applicant tracking systems, to social media, to where job seekers are hanging out every day for long periods of time. So one place, obviously, Twitter, given the name Tweet My Jobs. We have 10,000 what we call job channels inside Twitter. We work very closely with Twitter to be able to distribute jobs and target people by both job type and location. So it's okay just tweeting out jobs, but you've got to find the right people inside Twitter that are looking for those jobs. So we optimize our jobs for search, and we also put them down the correct channel where people are following. And we also enable job seekers themselves to actually create custom channels that become very complex, like I'm looking for a senior marketing role at an internet company in Los Angeles. Please notify me immediately a job becomes available. And the thing about Twitter is, as you were mentioning before, it's very real time. Okay? So we'll get things out on Twitter as soon as they appear on the applicant tracking system. We go backwards and forwards to the applicant tracking system multiple times a day. We make sure that we delete jobs out of Twitter as soon as they come off of the applicant tracking system. And then we send job seekers directly from clicking on a link to the applicant tracking system. So there's no middleman. We're not interested in the traffic that traditional job boards might be, because we're not trying to monetize that traffic. So that's the Twitter side of things. But we also help employers distribute their jobs into LinkedIn and also into Facebook. And Facebook's very, very important because a Facebook page is really the command center for any company inside of Facebook. So one of our customers just comes straight to mind is Expedia. And Expedia has 1.2 million people that like that Facebook page, that get notifications on their wall when Expedia posts things. So we integrate a micro-career site into that Facebook page in the same way as everyone will have a careers section of their website. So they should have a careers section on their Facebook page too. And from inside that Facebook page, you can tell the world why you're a great place to work, as you would on your website. You can put all of your jobs, you don't have to, again, straight from your applicant tracking system into Facebook, list of all your jobs. You can let people view those jobs, and when they click apply, directly to your applicant tracking system again. And also to enable people to search through a map. So what we're really trying to do with employers is, at the push of a button, distribute your jobs, target the right people, and brand your company. Because social recruiting really is about branding, and we're trying to provide the tools. We're a technology company, so we're trying to provide a platform for employers to enable social media for their recruiting purposes. And I hear a lot that there's a lot of stuff out there. There's blogs, there's Twitter, there's Facebook, and there's tons of companies in this space, in the HR tech space. I was actually at an event in Chicago last week, and it's really a boom area for technology, the human resource market. And it's everything, right? It's everything from the job fights of the world that are great new applicant tracking systems, all the way through to talent communities and distributing and mobile, and it's busy. So we try to do push of a button, we do it for you, you don't need to do anything. From the job seeker perspective, what we want to do is we want to provide job seekers with great job matches where they want them, when they want them. So what does that mean? Well, a great job match isn't, hey, you tell me you're looking for a marketing role at a technology company in Los Angeles, in whatever industry you want. Anyone can do an algorithm, right? Anyone these days can write an algorithm and send you the right jobs. It's changing a good job match into a great job match. What does that mean? You've got a 1 in 219 chance of getting a job that you apply through a job board, or you just go to a company's applicant tracking system and apply straight through there. You've got a 1 in 10 chance with a referral. You've got a 20 times better chance of getting a job if you're introduced to a company. Now, everyone in this room probably knows that, right? The key to getting a job is networking. And the key to social media is leveraging your social connections to help you get that job. Now, where the right social connections for you are really depends. LinkedIn is a phenomenal company, and if I was in any of your guys' role, a phenomenal place to source. Absolutely phenomenal, right? It's probably not the best place for the average person to be able to connect with that company, because you go to an event like this, you connect on LinkedIn, you see them once in your life, that person's never going to help you get that job. On Facebook, you've got your friends, your family, it's more personal, and on Facebook, actually, probably got more connections. The average Facebook user has 500 connections. If you can get to your friends and friends of friends, you can basically tap into 250,000 people. So what we try to do, changing a good job match into a great job match, is we will tell you, when we send you a job, whether any of your Facebook connections have an entry into that company, and we help enable that referral directly through Facebook. So that's a good job match to a great job match. Where you want them, you tell us where you want them. There are 100,000 job boards in existence today, 100,000. So if you're looking for a job, how do you know where to go, right? How do you know? Should you be on Monster or Career Builder? Should you be on Dice or LinkedIn or any of the other niche job boards in the entertainment industry for entertainment jobs, as an example? So what we say is, hey, you shouldn't have to come anywhere. You shouldn't have to come to Tweet My Jobs. You come to us once. You tell us what you want and where you want us to deliver you those job matches. Do you want them on your phone? Do you want them in your email? Do you want them on Twitter? Do you want them on Facebook? Where do you want them? And we send them to you, and we tell you when you've got a connection there. And how often do you want them? Do you want them immediately the job comes out? Because we can do that, and we'll send it to you immediately, and you can be ahead of the pack. If you, we recently put a job on LinkedIn, entry-level PR person. We got 450 responses. 450 responses. The people that came in first got looked at first, right? That's the way it goes. So if you want to get instant notifications, we're able to do that for you. So that's really the two sides of the coin, from an employer perspective and a job seeker perspective. And we've got about 3 million people every month using it, and we're building our own communities to help our employers as well leverage them. So.
Excellent, excellent. And the branding actually has a double meaning. There is the corporate branding that Tweet My Jobs and other companies are trying to create through their social media presence, but there is the third part we're going to talk about, which is your brand via your social media presence, and we'll tap into that in a minute. But Todd, I'm sure, has some thoughts on it in terms of.
Wow. Todd has thoughts. That's new. It's really interesting to me listening. You know, you folks came here with hopefully came here with a specific idea in mind and a goal. And I know I've been listening to conversations like this and really great ideas. And I always try to think about what's the core of the issue. What really is this all about? And we hear words like the branding and what is a brand and how do we connect that and the perfect match and a great match and all that. And we look at all the volume, thousands of job sites, and we can throw out numbers and statistics all day that are shocking, or maybe they become mind-numbing after a while. There's so much. But from my point of view, what it comes down to is telling your story. If you're the company, telling your story, getting your brand awareness, what you're looking for in people. Who do you want to join your company? Who do you want on the team? And for you, as an applicant or a job seeker, that's really what all your social media presence is about. It doesn't matter what you use, LinkedIn, Dice. It's really kind of irrelevant. The fact is, most recruiters that are doing searching today that are technologically savvy, to the comment about the ATS, think about it, it's an applicant tracking system. Applicants, that's you, all of us. Tracking means following. Tracking is record keeping. That's what that is. And the system, well, you know, you can ask 10 recruiters and you'll get 10 opinions about applicant tracking, and none of them good.
So you'll get 11.
Yeah, so you'll get 11, exactly. It's all about how well you tell your story about who you are and what it is you want to be doing. And of course, try to emphasize what you're actually good at. You know, that's really what recruiters need to see, because frankly, they're running Google searches, they're running Boolean searches, they're looking for keywords. Every resume, every platform you have will come up on that search. They're literally getting out there and saying, you know, using the internet to say, let's find individuals with the following keywords. And they do that not to rule you out, not to bring you to the top, but the real reason that recruiters do that is because there's so much information out there. Yeah. It would take days and days and days just thinking about how to planning a search manually and making phone calls or responding to ads. The technology has made the conversation happen much more quickly, and we can get 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 people on a global application process, and then we can start looking at, all right, now how do we zero in on these folks? And that zeroing in process is a direct result of how well you've told your story. You know, the worst thing that people do, I think, at job fairs, I tell you know, transitioning military folks this. I get this all the time, and I feel for them. You know, they're conditioned to say, I'll do whatever you want me to do. You know, I'm flexible, I'm open, and all that. Fabulous answer. It's also the worst answer. You're not helping a recruiter understand what it is that you can do, and all that. I mean, for example, all of you have, how many people, just show a quick show of hands, how many of you have LinkedIn pages? Awesome. All right. How many of you have a summary at the top of your profile that says what it is that you do? All right. Did you include in that summary, how many, again, the hands, how many of you included in that summary what it is you want to do? What's your next career step, what you're looking to do? That's great. Those folks who have their hands up there, they have a big advantage. You've got a good summary, you're telling people who you are, hopefully you're telling that story well. You're telling them what you do, what you're good at, and then you're telling them what you want to do next, or what you'd like to be doing, getting that goal set up. It's not as easy as I just made it sound. You know, it takes a lot of time and a lot of thought to put it together. But once you do it, recruiters will really begin to be able to have an actual dialogue with you about what you want to do. And that's what it comes down to. I'm not going to sit here and tell you about what website works better or what ATS works better. You know, some people will tell you they're all awesome. Some people will tell you they're all a waste. So it just doesn't, but it really matters is how well you're telling that story and how active you are. I think I heard the comment too about a full-time job about, what did you call it, Andy? What was that, persistence? I love it. Perpetual persistence. God, it feels that way. It's like you can spend all day just updating your LinkedIn profile and all that. And frankly,
that's just LinkedIn.
That's just a side note.
It has been a couple days, Todd. I'm wondering what's going on.
It's a preference note of mine as a you know, I have a couple thousand people in my network, and I love seeing updates on networking, on contacts, on new jobs, new roles, changes. You know what I hate? Is people who put these updates about, oh, I read this article that was really interesting, and it's a paid promotion. It drives me up a wall. Because that's actually diluting LinkedIn. And a quick note about LinkedIn. You know what the #1 complaint LinkedIn is receiving these days right now? #1? There's too many recruiters on LinkedIn. They go on there, you're trying to get a network going, and it's like, boom, you get 300 recruiters that want to get your profile. So bear in mind, that pool is growing. I think there are over 200 million people now with full-on profiles. That's a lot. Great. That's a lot of people. There's also a lot of recruiters on LinkedIn. So make your judgment call. Get your story told, but then do you want to dive into that pond where there's all these recruiters? I would. I mean, that's my preference because they're the ones who are trying to find those people to fill those jobs. So don't let people tell you that LinkedIn or the social media sites are not productive. Just tell your story well.
Good. Quick question, Todd, though, and I'll give you an example of what happened to me one time. Is there any potential backlash or internal problems when a company looks at the profiles of their employees and sees that they, have put down they're interested in career opportunities and what I want my next job to be? Is that disconcerting? Is that is it going off message in terms of the brand that the company's trying to create and build? See, they pull in all the employees when they create a corporate page on LinkedIn, and that's visible. And now LinkedIn has that sort of the branding application where the employers can check who's commenting on what their employees are saying who's connecting with employees and what jobs they're clicking on, and then they get all that data. So is there any pushback on that? And if you were in charge of the brand, would you say, you're here, you stay here, this is what you're projecting?
Yeah, I mean, I made this comment at earlier sessions. You know, the internet's written in ink. You know, what you put out there, you own. So choose your words carefully. I said, craft your story well. Yeah. It's one thing to say, I'm currently a bank manager, and I'm looking forward to my next career move in banking, or moving it, advancement in banking, or looking for opportunities, or however you word that, as opposed to saying, I work at, and I'm choosing this name randomly. I work at Bank of the West, and I hate it here, and I would love to go work at a bank. Don't do that. Don't do that. But but to your point, but people do look for those things, and the advantage you have as a job seeker, if you're worried about that, if you're working on a very large orbiting space station with a guy in a black helmet that's running around managing the joint. Notice my allusion to Star Wars there. That can be a problem, and maybe that speaks directly to the culture of the company you're working in, and whether you want to be there or not. But the defense mechanism that you have is there is so much data going on. If your employer has time to aggregate and pull up commentary from your LinkedIn pages, or your social media pages, on one hand, think about it, is this something I would want my employer to hear me actually saying or read me saying about them? And second is, if they have that kind of wherewithal to be looking at it, then that's something about the culture where you're at. So it's a balancing act.
I did get a call. I had, within a day, 4 people from one company that had linked into me, and I got a call from the CEO. He said, "What's going on? Why are you stealing all my employees?" And I said, "I'm not. They're reaching out to me, sir. I have no idea what's going on there, but that might be a clue to you." The other thing.
Hey, what recruiter doesn't want to get that phone call?
Yeah,
why are you stealing my employees?
I was
Because you're awesome, Linda. That's why.
The cease and desist letter is on its way. I'm like, dude, these people clearly went out of your company. Maybe we should talk. But the other thing is, I notice when there's a lot of sudden movement on a profile, suddenly updating it, because I think you can control if it's posting that you're changing titles and business and stuff. But when you see a lot of movement in there, like, oh, this guy's getting restless. And the next thing you'll see is about 10 connections with recruiters. Joe Schmo is now connected to Linda Nicolai and Anne-Marie Penny and XYZ recruiter, and like, okay, this guy's getting restless. If you are cynical and you like to play with that kind of CSI stuff, it's pretty easy to figure out what's going on someone's profile and when they're getting restless and when you want to give them a call. So the next section we got to move through quickly because I know we got a lot of Q&A. I just want some tips to give to these people relative to tying this all together in terms of their brand, what they should be doing to get your attention, all the new tools that are out there. Should they be on LinkedIn and Facebook and be known, and Tumblr and About Me and Brazen and Vimeo, and should they have a video presence? Should they go Gangnam Style and get your attention? There are probably a dozen new ways that people are presenting resumes, whether it's an infogram, whether it's packaging, whether it is Twitter, Facebook, and video. And there's even new companies out there that let you create your own video introduction, and then you can send it on through to other companies, and other companies are actually using it. I think it's called Spark Hire. Spark Hire is a video application system. So if you can kind of give an idea of, for instance, Jeff, what do you want to see when someone comes in the door, other than they have clearly done their homework on the company and have some opinions on what they do and how it's going to affect your business model, but do you actually go and look at their profiles? Do you look for comments? Do you look for who they're connected to and those references and those sorts of things?
Well, I think that Todd brought up some interesting points, and when it comes down to it, a lot of those things that are traditional about the whole once the person gets in the door, a lot of the social media elements are to get your foot in the door. Once you're in the door, it then becomes about making sure that you have a story. To Todd's point of don't try and tell me you can do anything that I want you to do, because that doesn't help me. What I want to know is, and I will say that a lot of our behavioral interviews are structured so that there isn't necessarily a right answer, but there's an answer that we're looking for, so it's not necessarily clear, but to you, what is that answer? Don't try and tell me something I want to hear, because once you're if you get hired into that position, it'll come out. So what we really need to know are those pieces. So I think that we do tend to do research. I will say that it's not always in advance of the person coming in the door. We do want them to know about the organization. We do want to know about them. Oftentimes we have a collaborative effort with the hiring managers to understand, all right, what are the different skill sets that we want to target? Hopefully the hiring manager has done their due diligence on the candidate to the same degree that the candidate has done their due diligence on the company. Sometimes it's like to the point of Facebook and stuff like that. I think that can be your enemy as much as it can be your friend. So it's with all social media, you got to be aware of that piece. But yeah, we do some of that research, but I think that that comes kind of after the fact. I personally, when I'm interviewing people, I try not to come in with too many preconceived notions. I want to know I want to know the background. I want to understand. I want it to help direct my process, but I don't necessarily want it to define a preposition before I start speaking with the person.
Good. How about you, Andy?
Yeah, I again, back to the idea of the story, I so much prefer chronological resumes to skills-based resumes.
Absolutely.
And we could talk for hours about why. But that is the core of the story, right? So, and it's all between the lines of where you started to where you landed and why you're here, why we're in this interview. And that's what I love most about people who've been able to craft that story in a crisp, clear, almost utilitarian way. I mean, I think resumes are a utility that open doors and create conversation. It's not a place to really market yourself per se. I've gotten resumes with flashing GIFs. I've gotten resumes with, multicolored photographs. But by and large, it's a chronological story that needs to be told, and what's in between. I want to know personally when I'm interviewing somebody for a role, like, who did you surround yourself with, and who brought you along? What were the decisions you made to move from one job to another? Sort of your standard basic resume questions, but or interview questions from the resume. But those are very telling. I mean, that's really get the meat of the conversation as to how you've managed your career from top to bottom. So that's why skills-based resumes are so much more difficult to parse out. I mean, if you have your story from beginning to end, that's where you start and that's where you get the picture. What I love about social media involved in all this is then I get to create a picture of what this person really is about. And when you're dealing with a company like Time Warner, clearly culture is a big factor. And I mean, every company will tell you that culture is a big factor in their business, but truly in the divisions, all the divisions of Time Warner, they put a big premium on that. And what's out there on you is what's out there on you. If you saw my Tumblr blog, you'd know that I have an obsession with Todd Rundgren, or that I like photographs of the Rockies. But I don't know how much that's going to factor into whether you get the job or not. But you'll actually have a much better sense of who the person is. And again, that's what's so important about that face-to-face. Regardless of all the technology and regardless of all the matching and the data and the analytics and the algorithms, there's so much going on when you are sitting down in front of somebody and talking about them and the job and you and the company. That's not on paper and it's nowhere else to be found. It's almost in the ether. That's when you can make decisions based on that space, that's when I think you're making the right decisions, when you've formed that picture based on that face-to-face discussion that's probably not showing up in your resume and your skill set, so.
What do you have to say, Stuart?
To answer your question, is it important to be on these, what should you be doing on these social media platforms if you're looking to get a job? Absolutely, you should make sure your profiles are up to date. Look, I firmly believe that the way to get a job is to get out there, to meet with people, to speak to people, to meet with the buyer, right? The buyer is, if you're looking for a marketing job, the CMO. If you're looking for an engineering job, the CTO. To get out there, to approach them. You might email them. You decide at the bottom of your email, what are you going to highlight? Is it your Twitter handle? Is it your LinkedIn profile? If it's your Twitter handle, make sure on your Twitter handle you're talking about Ruby on Rails and interacting with the right people on Ruby on Rails if that's what you program and you're trying to meet a CTO. So you should be very, very aware of it. Now, not all of them will look at it, but some of them will. And if you want to put your best foot forward and be in the best position, then absolutely you should be on it. You should be doing the right stuff. And you should be reaching out to people. You should be reaching out to the buyer rather than just applying for jobs online. The best jobs are the jobs that aren't yet out there and aren't yet on the ATS system, aren't yet on LinkedIn. They're the best jobs to get, and they're the hardest jobs to get. But
Todd?
I'm just going to stick to my earlier comment. Have a clear picture of what you're talking about and tell your story well. And Andy's comment was actually really telling about the idea around culture and the ideas. You'll hear the term fit. If you spend enough time with recruiters, and I hope that you don't, we talk about fit a lot. Are they a fit for the role? The technical part's relatively easy. Can you type a certain speed? Can you program in Ruby on Rails? What exposure do you have to that? Those are pretty straightforward questions, and they're yes or no. And they're also the ones that if you exaggerate or lie about, that comes out really quickly. So don't do that. But it's that fit conversation that really comes in. Will that person be able to work with you? Will you be able to work with the team? Will you enjoy the job? Those are important, and that's a two-way dialogue. You could be talking, with Andy, and he's going to be able to say in his mind, this executive that I'm supporting, this person I'm doing the search for, will not like this person, or will like this person, and that opens up all the whole dialogue. In that, in some cultures and some companies, that fit component is more important than others. In Amazon, it's a very data-driven, very outcomes-driven organization. I would say that whether someone is liked or likable is up there. It's a top thing, but it's not the thing. It's an outcomes-driven culture. Where in a creative culture, and neither of these, by the way, is good or bad. They're just the difference. In a creative culture, that collaboration is really important. The idea is that someone there's usually a creative mind, and if they have a team of people that are going to work 12, 14, 16, 18 hours a day to get a television show or a film off the ground, they better get along and they better like each other, because that's how marriages end and things like that if they don't get along and they fight. So that fit aspect is huge, and that's an important thing for you to know. Where do you want to be? What are you going to work in? If you like to work with teams, find a team culture. If you like to work by yourself, look for those opportunities where you can be an individual contributor. That's just, and you have to be honest with yourself about that. I've seen too many people in their careers struggle because they're not honest. What's that classic stereotype? I'm a people person, and it's like, I usually have the unfortunate role of letting people know, no, you're not. So keep that in mind about what you're doing, and work on that fit.
Happy, peppy, perky people. Happy, peppy, peppy. Go ahead.
I think a central thing that everybody's been bringing up, this is the mixed bag of social media. Because back in the beginning of the .com boom, I used to say, because of my networks, I can find people that you can't find. And back in the 90s, that was true. Sure. Well, now my value proposition is, look, I can filter this stuff for you. We call it the easy button. I'm going to give you 3 resumes, and you're going to be happy to choose from that. And the clients go, oh, my God, thank you. So in terms of cutting through the clutter of social media, I think that this is where, people are putting so much data out there and so many words, and it just becomes noise. I placed a young lady at one of my clients who's an ex-PayPal executive, so I know this culture very well, and we're looking for a data analyst that's a SQL expert. Her LinkedIn profile summary, the entire thing said, I eat SQL for breakfast. And I went, that's our girl. And it was done. So I think that in terms of your resume and your social media presence and your LinkedIn profiles, be willing to put it out there, be concise about it. To, I believe, Stuart's point, or maybe it was yours because you had so many good ones. Don't try to be all things to all people, and don't try to say I'll do whatever you need me to do, because those are the people that I can never place. My clients don't even want to see. Their resumes, talk about the fact that they're good with marketing and operations and finance and sales. And, really the only thing that everybody should be good at is sales. Because whether you like it or not, when you're putting your name out there and you're sending your resume and everything that you're doing on social media, ultimately the core of it is how are you selling yourself to an audience that you're either trying to get to buy you today or you're going to be selling yourself to them a year from now or 10 years from now. Again, if you make it easier on your audience, that's going to make it easier on you. And kind of related to both the LinkedIn and the profiles and the resumes, these algorithms, they're going to find that phrase product management. You don't have to have a big summary at the top of your resume that says I'm a product manager and then your job title throughout your career is product manager. Just get straight to the chronology. A summary should be a summary. It could be one sentence that says this is what I want to do. Okay, great, that was easy. Let's come in and talk about it.
Couldn't agree more. And there's plenty of exercises to go through in terms of assessing what you do. I have a handout that I can email to any of you. It's kind of twofold. The little things you need to be doing every day and the being CEO of your career. The one thing that you can be CEO of is your career. You manage sales, finance, marketing, operations, everything. And it talks a little bit about establishing your product, so to speak, and the ability to be able to have that broken down into the buckets, the basic buckets that make up any company: marketing, sales, operations, finance, and management. And assess your entire experience in, if you want percentages of 30% experience in marketing, 80% in operations. It begins to paint a picture for you of exactly where your skill sets are. Then you need to create that sound bite. I run into people all the time, as what will happen after this will get rushed. And I can only remember so much about your face and your company and what you do. If you're prepared and you have in 3 simple ways, either a 3-sentence description of what you do, just 3 sentences. If you can pare that down to 1 sentence, even better. If you can really get it down to the verb, it's what you do. It's really cool. And that's just for your mindset. People, what do? I'm a recruiter. That's a verb. That's what I do. And then you can extrapolate a little bit more about being creative about it. So if you want that, just email me and I'll send it to you. It's the CEO of my career. Let's open up for some questions. I know a lot of you probably have them. First one in the back there.
Taking a different tack, and thanks everyone for being here in town. I'm really excited I was here to hear that Amazon will be offering teleportation into our in Hollywood, in entertainment, there's so many small businesses that don't have the resources for ATS, don't have the time to be doing the search like you guys are doing. Do you have any shortcuts to help find that talent? Is there anything like, just for those people that are trying to run businesses while also trying to get talent?
I would say LinkedIn's not real good for micro industries. I don't find it very useful for me when I really need to drill down.
Yeah, so the question is, you're looking for, say, you have some resource issues in terms of size and scope, and $100,000 or $1 million applicant tracking system is not going to make it, right? So you look.
And also to retain search isn't.
Right. There are some very low-cost, online-based applicant tracking tools that you can use, but remember, those are applicant tracking tools. If you're talking about access to the market, I'll make a couple of short, very quick win suggestions. One is to have a very strong, very robust Facebook page and LinkedIn company page. You can do those for free. Yep. Having an active social media presence that's tied together. Tied together to your company's online presence, your website. I see so many companies where they have a LinkedIn page, a Facebook page, a web page, an actual company web page, and maybe 3 or 4 other things, and they're not connected. One of my favorite examples was I have one of my recruiters, when I first got to Amazon, they were sending out their emails, and they had these beautiful signatures with all these social media links. And this one guy sent out his email, and he's got a Pinterest link, a LinkedIn page, a Facebook page. He's got everything nailed. And I said, you know what? I'm on day 2 here. I want to look and see what these folks are doing social media-wise in terms of how the recruiter is using it. I click on the Pinterest. It's some other guy's Pinterest page. Oops. I click on the Facebook page. It's some other person's Facebook page. What it was is they had put together this strategic sort of tribal knowledge about, hey, we'll use social media and see what happens. So I sent out the note. I said, can you all do this? Can you all do me a favor? Can you take off all your social media links and let's get them all going so that they're all Amazon social media links? And it was a pretty quick turnaround. So if you get a large organization where people are using something aggressively, it's all, from my point of view, it's all around the integration. And then the more active you get on that page, on that Facebook and LinkedIn page, the more people will see your company and begin to network. Your network will tie in with that automatically, and therefore their networks will tie in with it. And you can do all that, as far as I know, for free, and without a major cost, except for your time.
Yeah, exactly. Questions? Some more questions. Go ahead. Loud.
Thank you for being here. Very talk. Talking about Facebook and LinkedIn and how you sort of market yourself and the company on LinkedIn is Facebook because they get too much information and then it seems as though you have to really edit what you write because people are going to look there and they may or may not like what you.
Sure, sure. And your question is?
And the question is, on LinkedIn, what I've seen is a lot of people are just putting their, where I work and what I do, and they're not telling the story at all. So what do you do to tell the story? Do you tell people who you are, and does that connect to why you're here and what you do? How would you approach that?
Well, the two networks are distinct. I mean, LinkedIn is clearly professional networking. Facebook originally started out to be social in nature, but turned very quickly, and at least I started using it for networking purposes because it hadn't hit mainstream. But what's your opinion on that in terms of how much of the story can you portray in a LinkedIn profile?
Yeah, I'll say that I love just simple, crisp, easy to read LinkedIn profiles without, the story is what it is, right? It's very telling the companies that you've associated yourself with, that you've decided to get employed by, and where you go from there. That really, in a lot of ways, is the story and gives us, I think, enough information to make a decision as to whether we should continue the conversation or I should give you a call or find out more about you. It's really almost that simple.
So much of what you put out on any social media, that you just need to have a certain amount of consciousness about what is the purpose of this tool, and that's what you're going to share. So, for example, the economy crashed. I took a break. I worked for a winery for a few months. Now, a lot of the executives that I work with, they like wine too. So I leave that on my profile, not because that has anything to do with recruiting until 5. But a lot of people go, oh, wow, I love Paso Robles. That's a beautiful area. And now you've got a reason to connect on a personal level, and now you can talk about business.
Yeah.
So whatever you put on your LinkedIn profile, just be aware, is this adding any value or is it just noise?
Exactly. We like to see that you're building on top of your skills. I left this job because I wanted to do this in order to get this.
Yes.
I realized I didn't have a financial pinnacle. I went and took, classes or got an MBA so that I had the 4 pillars that support a business in my goal of becoming COO. We like to see that. At least there's a method to what you're trying to do. There was a question there, that gentleman.
In addition to my own career, I teach students in the entertainment media, and they are just beginning to have a story to tell. What would be your advice to those that are starting out that I could pass on to them that might help them position themselves correctly as they begin?
Great question. I find dealing with that with my own son, who said the same thing. I don't have anything. I said, Julian, there's all kinds of things that you've done they're not big things, but they're enough to show that you took some initiative and took some things on all by yourself. Jeff, what do you say?
Yeah, and it's
you must have a lot of entry level there. So what do you say?
Right, and we're actually growing it even more. I think that when we started out, and actually for the first several years of our growth, we were focused on people with existing experience and so forth, but now we're actually saying, all right, we want to build our own pipeline of succession planning throughout the organization. I think that the key point for me around that would not necessarily be purely around the experience as part of your story, but also your passions. So speak to your passions. I think that to the previous question, the story is not just about some kind of summary statement. It's about how do you position each of the jobs that you've had that contribute to telling that story. In this case that you're talking about, it's more about how do you express your passion, your interest, and how you're exploring those interests. And it can be interest not just in terms of a specific profession or anything like that, but it can also be about creativity, intellectual pursuits. It can be around any type of area, and then crafting your message, your story around that.
Also encourage them to practice interview. I find a lot of just sit down and make them interview over and over and over.
Real quick, if I may, just we mentioned this in a previous conversation too. One of the things about having younger people in their profiles is, and maybe it's less true. I'd love to hear from the rest of the panel about it. But a lot of folks in our situation in hiring executives in companies, young people, quote unquote, new entries into the workforce. They're not all young. They have this sort of protective aura around them that we're sort of afraid of them and that they know more than us. And so they can really emphasize their technological skills if they're familiar with. For example, I had these two interns at Amazon that did this entire Prezi system, and they kept calling it Prezis and Prezis and Prezis. Half the room thought they were just abbreviating the word presentation. And they had, and they saw these shows. They said, "Wow, you guys are really good with PowerPoint and all that." And I walked up to both of them afterward, and I said, "By the way, you guys are using Prezi, right? P-R-E-Z-Y or I?" And they're like, "Yeah." And I go, "Thank God," because I was just sort of really nervous that I had no idea what they were doing. But that is a huge advantage. The idea is that new graduates are coming out of school, and a lot of companies think they just know a lot about what's going on and have their fingers on the pulse. And they should play to that. They should play to that idea and be truthful about where they have that technological expertise and how they can bring some of these really money-saving or advantageous technologies to the workplace.
Digital natives, and they are actually using this stuff. So they know when they come into the interview. Foursquare was a good example of a person who wanted a business development job, and they had brought to the interview, to the table, 200 businesses that they had signed up through Foursquare just by its own usage. So, being tactile, hands-on, and native to it is going to be to their advantage. This woman here.
Yeah, you were talking about videos. I know that you can do a video on Facebook. Can you do a video on LinkedIn? And also, does it matter, not necessarily what you look like, but your background? Like, not on a street, I'm assuming, or maybe on a street that makes more interesting.
Is it a real, if it's a professional reel or a presentation, it needs to be as professional as can be.
Should it be? Like, I'm assuming
it should be somewhere between brief and short. So, I've had that question a lot about how long should a video be. Yeah, a video should be three things. I think Andy did a really good job in terms of the summary. They should be crisp, they should be watchable. I mean, I'll be honest, my nephew put a video out a while ago. He was looking to fundraise. He's using Kickstarter. And he did the video, and he showed it to me, and he says, "Uncle Todd, what do you think of it?" He's 27. And he said, "What do you think of this video?" He's got this amazing technology he's trying to get investors for. But in the video, he filmed it in his basement. He's in a swivel chair, and he's literally going back and forth and talking to him. And I said, this is horrible. And he was kind of hurt. And he goes, "Well, what can I do better? I could just... all of it." Yeah. So, the question is, why are you making the video? What's it for?
Well, remember that the people that are looking at this, they have the attention span of a hormonal fruit fly. So, I mean, if you're going, like, to your point of brief and short, it's what was the length of time that people spend on a resume? It's even less with the video. So you have to have instant engagement.
Even before you get into that, because I'm one of those impatient people. Get to the point 1 second or you lose me. So what I want to know is your opinion about this is, before you even get to the length, because somebody won't know sometimes how long it is, what would you do the first, say, 3 seconds? Is it they're going to look at the background, they're going to look at your look? So I wanted to get a feel for what you look.
It has to be related to what you are doing or what you're looking for. And I would say that the videos, in my opinion, would only be relevant for specific career paths. I think in a lot of areas, people are not going to be interested. I mean, you create one for an accountant, I'm sorry, it's just not going to work.
Yeah, we wouldn't take the time to do that. If we're going to spend the time, we're going to bring you in person. But if there is a context that a video would be relevant, besides the brevity of it, in terms of your background, I would give you the same advice when people ask, what should I wear to an interview? You know what? If somebody doesn't remember what you were wearing when you walk out the door, that's the right outfit, because they should only be paying attention to what's coming out of here.
Good one. Okay, that gentleman there.
We'd like the panel's thoughts on ranking the additional modules in LinkedIn. For example, the endorsements, the groups, the number of connections, those additional things that seem to be proliferating throughout the LinkedIn profile.
Good question.
You know, the recommendations are something that's been an active conversation. There have been a lot of articles written about it, and LinkedIn is references, things like that. You know, you have to be careful. I made comment earlier. If you're asking recruiters, in my opinion, really good recruiters that are worth their salt, don't take anything they see on any website at face value. You know, I mean, I'm being serious. I'm not trying to be. You know, the idea is that, of course, you got someone to say something nice about you. You know, and be positive. It's the specificity of that commentary. You know, if that, for example, if I write a reference for someone, I recommend, say, I think John Doe is an excellent accountant. He was, efficient. He was really, I really spoke to the idea. And if I'm looking for an accountant, that tells me something that somebody said really specific about this person. But it's a face value thing. On the other modules, it really depends on how targeted they are towards what you're trying to achieve. So it's fairly difficult to rank them, but if a recruiter comes to me and says, this is the person we should hire, why? Look, he's got 17 references in the comments, and they're all awesome. I'm going to be like, all right, I need to send you back to,
Recruiting 101.
Yeah, Recruiting 101, because you just believe in everything you read.
Well, are you talking about that new box that's been popping up where you say, oh, this person's amazing about puppies?
You guys like that? Of course they're going to endorse you. I mean, they're
noise.
linked with you. I find that useless.
It's
actually.
LinkedIn's way of trying to engage you in that tool more. It's less about the candidate, more about LinkedIn.
Plus it pre-populates it, so you don't really, you just click endorse, and there's actually 6 or 7 other choices there. So I'm endorsed on.
They want more time on site. That's how they monetize it. That's the tool, right? But I would ask you, Todd, one thing. Back to that question on references, right? I agree. Isn't it again about your story and being strategic? Like, who do you put on the references? And what if you knew the person that was the reference, right? If it was a luminary in the industry, if it was the CEO of a well-known company that left the reference, that might make you turn your head. It's all about being strategic.
It's funny you say that, because I'll give you an example of the risk factor. I think, strategic, tying it all together. Is it, to my comment was, is it about your job search and your goal that you're trying to achieve? Is it helpful? Actually, this is funny but sad. I actually had someone get a recommendation on their website, and they in the reference information they sent it to me. They were inquiring to me, and they saw that on my profile on LinkedIn that I had worked at Volt Information Sciences years ago. And this person then launched into their dialogue about how they worked there and how they worked really closely with certain individuals at the organization. And so I said back to them, I said, "Oh, this is fantastic. We know some of the same people." And this individual then responded with a particular name of a person. They said, "Oh yeah, this person and I were tight. We were really close." And I said, "When did you work together?" And she gave me the dates they worked together. I did not respond to the rest of the conversation, because the individual that she was referring to was my former manager. I reported that person, and that person had died 3 years before.
Whoops.
So the idea was that it wasn't an honest mistake. She was attempting to mislead me, and she was looking far enough back in my background to make it sound like she had some sort of connection to build on that. So it's all about to the video, to the linking, and to that what if. Yeah. This is a very open situation. You have to be very specific about what it is. And that's, people see a reference, they may know that person. You go, "Hey, Todd, I saw you recommended person X. That's great." Sure, yeah. Whatever that comment's going to be is how it's going to play out. So keep that in mind. They're there, they're useful, but the more you put out, the more interaction you're going to get on that deeper dive before you even get a chance to have a real conversation.
Exactly. Again, it all points to being very strategic, at least about the LinkedIn profile, in terms of what you're saying, your job titles, be accurate. I get resumes where I go back and look at the resume, match up against LinkedIn, and the dates aren't quite right, and the titles aren't quite right. We're in a world where you can research anything. I can find your dead grandmother's old shoes if I want to. So realize that some people really, 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 really dig. Want to wrap it up here. Was there one final question that back of the room there?
Hi, thank you guys. I work with the young adults.
A little louder.
The young adults that are entering the workforce, the college students. And can you give me a suggestion on how I can prepare them to connect better with future employers on LinkedIn and include their internships?
Oh, well, Jeff is in charge of, I'm sorry, Stuart's in charge of
Yeah,
internships.com.
we actually run internships.com as well, for what it's worth. So I can just tell you on internships rather than LinkedIn. Internships are hugely popular now amongst college students, increasingly popular. Our statistics are now showing that about 7 out of 10 internships are turning into full-time jobs. So we're seeing it as the really good way to enter into the workforce. And employers the increase that employers are posting internships is pretty astonishing as well. Year on year, they're posting like 50% more than they were the year before, and they're doing it as well to find people, to seed people into their organizations. So, a site like internships.com, and I'm obviously biased because that's one that we run. We have about 70,000 active internships on the site. They're all real, from employers that come, everything from a small business to a very large business. We have anything. We're in entertainment here. We've had Disney, NBC, Warner Brothers, all those types of companies. Live Nation have posted on internships.com. So the LinkedIn's a great place to have your profile and build it and tell your story. The thing that LinkedIn lacks on internships is inventory. They don't have the internships on the system, so it's a good place for you as a student to start building out your profile, but you won't find the opportunities there.
Exactly. Well, I want to thank my panel. Oh, Todd, did you want to throw?
Go ahead. For young people and the students on LinkedIn, there's all the professional groups that they could if they become part of those groups, they can get access to a lot more people, a lot more information. Architects, whatever. There's a group for everything on LinkedIn.
Oh yeah, there's tons. And the more initiative I see on a young person's part, the better, because when out of 30, you're going to choose the one that goes that one little extra mile. Again, I want to thank my panelists. This was good, no? Helpful? Yeah? You're going to go and manage your career now.